Previously on Breaking Bad.
I've watched Breaking Bad 10 times. He decides to leave the RV and record his family a message. 2 weeks earlier, Walter is a chud. His brother-in-law, Hank, is a chad. Anyways, it's Walter's birthday. He turned 50 years old. Big meth lab. And Walt's like, how much money is that? Cooking the meth? You and I should partner up. And he starts pouring the hydrofluoric acid on her. And then Walter smokes some weed. Where we left off, Walt was smoking weed. But after that, Jesse and him have to go clean up that hallway with all the blood and the bones and the guns and the hydrofluoric acid. While they're doing this, Walt has a daydream about his past when he was in grad school. He's talking to his ex-girlfriend, Gretchen, and they're calculating the percentage of elements in the human body. But it doesn't add up to 100%. So Gretchen's like, oh my god, what could the other mass be? And Walt's like, I don't know. And Gretchen's like, what about my feelings? They have weight? Walt's like, nah. Then Walt and Jesse finish cleaning, and Jesse throws this huge hissy fit. Jesse's like, you gotta do your part of the job. You gotta go take care of my ex-boyfriend in the basement. But Walt's being a little scared. He's never killed anyone on purpose before. But then Jesse's like, screw this. I'm gonna go have sex with a hooker. And at the same time, Walt's brother-in-law, Hank, is taking Walt's son, Walter Jr., to go have sex with a hooker. And she's like, no, I'm not having sex with this guy. He's a kid. And Hank's like, whatever. You suck. You're a bad person. Blah, 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 blah. Go away. And then she goes up back to her room, and guess who's in there? It's Jesse. And he's like, oh, I've never done it with a woman before. And it cuts back to Walt, and he's on the phone with his wife. And she's like, you've been lying to me. Don't come home tonight. And Walt's like, oh, golly, no way. Then Walt starts planning his next YouTube video. No, not actually. He's just weighing the pros and cons of taking out the guy in the basement. So then Walt starts cooking up a sandwich, and he starts taking it down the stairs, but he fails the walking down the stairs quick time event, and he's like, oh! Then he wakes up. He goes back upstairs and he makes a new sandwich, and he gives him the food, and they have a deep conversation about his relationship with Jesse. And the guy's like, your partner? He's got a big mouth. And then Walt gets super jealous, and he starts like yanking on his chain a little, and he kind of like keels over. Oops. He actually kills him because the plate that he dropped earlier had a knife-shaped hole in it. When he went to go check, put it together like a little puzzle piece. And he's like, where's this other knife-shaped piece? It must be with him. So yeah, the guy that was locked up was gonna kill Walt. Then, to make it up to his wife, Walt goes home and tells Skyler that he has cancer. And that's where episode 3 ends and episode 4 starts. Nothing major happens in episode 4. Pretty much, Skyler snitches to the family that Walt has cancer. Jesse tries cooking Walter's recipe without Walt. Jesse smokes some of the meth and goes and talks to his parents. And then Jesse comes over to Walt's house to give him his share of the money. But he throws it up in the air, and Walt has to like clean all the money out of the pool. Then episode 5 happens, and this is where we get lore. The lore episode! Walt and Skyler have to go to this birthday party of Walter's ex-girlfriend's husband. And everyone there is wearing beige and white. Beige in the show means normalcy. Like being a normal dude, NPC. If they're wearing beige, they're an NPC or being portrayed as like a normal person. And Skyler snitches to them that Walt has cancer. And Elliot, the husband, is like, Walt, come back and work at the company that you literally created. We have great health insurance. And Walt's just like, Skyler, why did you snitch? So yeah, Walt made this company, and they pretty much stole it from him, in his eyes. While this is happening, Jesse's trying to cook Walt's formula, and it's not going very well. Jesse's like, no, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And his friend there is like, hey man, I was gonna smoke that, dude. Then Jesse's like, no, you're a meth head. And he leaves him out in the desert. At least he has a crossbow. Eventually, Walt gets fed up, and he goes back to Jesse's house. He's like, you want to cook crystal meth again? And Walt gets super tired, and he takes off his shirt. He's just like, oh, look at my abs, Jesse. And Jesse sees this little radiation dot on his chest. He's like, yo, you've been doing chemotherapy, yo. Is your insurance paying for it, yo? And Walt's like, Jesse, how do you know about that? My aunt had cancer. I remember the dot on her chest. It was the exact same. Why was Jesse looking at his aunt's chest? We'll never know. Anyways, Walt's too tired, and Jesse finishes the cook. And the next day, they're cooking again, and Jesse's like, I got you a new iPhone. Off So I spent your half of the money on it. And Walt's like, you only got enough money for an iPhone? Really? I thought you'd be ready for another pound. Jesse's like, yo, I can't move a pound in a day. I sold an ounce though. And Walt's like, hey, we should sell it to one person all at once. And he's like, we can't do that because you offed the only guy that could do that. But then Jesse has an epiphany. He's like, ding, oh wait, Skinny Pete knows a guy that knows a guy. And this guy is Tuco Salamanca. So Jesse takes a pound of meth to Tuco, and it's super sketchy. But eventually Tuco's just like, man, I don't like you. And he starts beating the crap out of him with a big bag of money, Looney Tunes style, just like, boom, boom. And Jesse gets hospitalized. Wah, wah, wah. Then Walt pulls up to the hospital, and Skinny Pete's like, hey, you're the cook, right? You make that super good meth. He's like, yep. And then Walt goes home, he shaves his head real quick, and then behind the scenes, he does a little bit of chemistry, and he makes fulminated mercury, or mercury fulminate. The cool thing about this stuff is it reacts with the air itself. So anyways, Walt goes to Tuco's place with a big bag of this mercury fulminate, and it looks very similar to the meth, and Tuco's like, wait a minute, I beat the crap out of your partner, I steal your meth, and then you come back and give me more meth? And then Walt's like, iconic scene number 1. And then throws it. He throws it, the whole building explodes. You got ACs falling out of the window, sirens going off. Walt looks awesome because he's just shaved his head. Also, he says Heisenberg. He says his name's Heisenberg. Got to mention that part. That's pretty important. And then Tuco's like, yo, you're crazy. I respect that because I'm actually crazy too. And gives him $50,000, which is like $15,000 more than what he should have paid because he's scared. Then Walt goes back to Jesse, gives him his share, and then they meet in a junkyard the next day to sell more meth. The expected amount was 2 pounds. That's what they wanted. But there's exactly an ounce missing. That's how much Jesse sold in the previous episodes. But they're mad that it's light. So they're like, hey, we're not going to give you all this money. We'll give you some of it, though. But Walt's like a little greedy man. He's super greedy. And he's like, give us all of it. But we'll bring you 4 pounds next week if you let us do that. And Tuco's like, man, okay, whatever, fine. And Jesse starts having a little freak out. So how the hell are they going to make double the meth in half the time? So they go back to Jesse's house to brainstorm. And Walt's like, we're not going to use pseudoephedrine anymore. We're going to start using aqueous methylamine. Now, methylamine, this stuff, super, you can't get it. You can't buy it anywhere. Cool thing about nitrogen compounds is that the nitrogen can lose a hydrogen, like pretty easily, and you can put something else on there, like the rest of the methamphetamine compound, which I'm definitely not going to show here. And then Jesse's like, yeah, science! But then they're like, wait a minute, how are we going to get all this? Because it's super illegal and you can't really buy it anywhere. And then Walt has a eureka moment when he looks at an Etch-a-Sketch, which contains aluminum powder. Aluminum powder is an essential portion of what thermite is. Thermite is pretty famous for burning super hot, like to the point where it can melt steel. It's about a fixed 50-50 mixture of iron oxide and aluminum powder. So anyways, they find a warehouse with methylamine. They go in there, put their masks on, ignite this thermite on a warehouse door, but Walt's like, where are the gallon jugs of this stuff? But here, they're only in the large barrels. So Walt and Jesse have to pick up this barrel and walk right out the door with it. Super slowly. It's actually kind of funny. It's like, you know, barrels roll, you know? Barrels roll. It's brought up later in the show. So they cook their 4 pound. Pretty much no hiccups. I say pretty much. And they actually hit over 4 pounds. But here's the thing. The meth is blue now. This isn't what actually happens. Let's just call it cinematic flair. Remember, blue means loyalty in the show, hinting at the idea that the users of Walt's meth are super loyal to that product. It is the best meth in the world. Tuco takes some, I mean, he does a line of it, and he goes mad. He goes crazy. One of his pals is like, hey man, just let them know that they work for you and no one else. And Tuco's like, are you talking to me? You can't be seriously talking to me right now. And he's like, hey man, it's whatever, I'm sorry. And then Tuco, for no reason, starts beating the crap out of him. And that's the end of season 1. It seems pretty slow because Walt, right now, he's kind of a boring guy. He's not the kingpin yet. He doesn't have the goatee yet, but he does have the blue meth. And he has the drive to save his family. This video gets 50 likes, I'll do season 2. This video took a long time to make. Hit subscribe. support the Patreon. I also deleted the Discord because created a Reddit board instead, because I feel like that reflects how the community here acts. So yeah, I'm gonna end it there. You're a loved human being, and you deserve to be happy.